Why can't you just do like the Viking call?
Alternatively, why can't you just play a riff that gets the crowd up and going? Hi, we're CDR. I'm Matt, he's Bryn, and today we're reviewing Deftones' new album, Ohms.
Ohms.
Yeah.
Like the mathematical equation. Ohms.
So what is an ohm?
An
Bryn?
ohm?
Yeah.
It's a form that comes from resistance and voltage.
Yeah, resistance is the key word that I'm looking for, so happy day. Represented by the symbol omega usually in a physics sense. So you mentioned to me before the podcast started that you didn't sort of even see the album artwork, and that's something that you like to touch on. So
I do like to touch on it. Matt can touch on it.
Very, very quickly, it's just a pair of what I would term mascara eyes that look sad, and they're on a background of just pixelated dots. If you look at it too closely or too far away, you kind of get some very interesting effects going on. I feel like this...
You mean almost like a magic picture?
Less like a magic picture, more like, like the hypnotic spirals.
Yeah.
Like, it plays tricks with your eyes a little bit.
If you look at it too long.
Yeah, absolutely.
True. It's been Deftones' 9th album. I have no fun facts. I'm not a big fan. This is my first one. But I have seen Deftones at a concert. And I think I'm going to go straight into it and say this is the only time where I'll ever listen to Deftones is when they're at a concert. It would be sick. This album, if it was to have light shows and smoke and them playing, yes, I think I would definitely go see the Deftones again. What
Sure.
do you think about the introduction with the almost Tool-like effect?
Okay, so just hitting it off the bat, I'm getting the impression that this album wasn't exactly your favorite album then.
No.
Fair enough.
This is not an album I'm going to put on in the morning. If someone is putting this album on in the morning and finding motivation from this, you need
help.
You need a lot of fucking help.
This is like alcohol. Don't be consuming it
Yeah,
before 12 o'clock.
this is what I would say if you want a moody afternoon and just want to like sit down and relax, whatever. Like put this on. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
it's
moody
great.
Afternoon, yeah.
If you don't want to listen to Tool, listen to this.
Yeah.
And I think that great concert. I put it on in the morning yesterday before I went to my run, and I was just like, oh my god, this fucked my day.
Yeah, definitely PM listening. In terms of the intro, I think this is probably one of the tropes that we'll probably get for this particular album. Is that the intros, I think, generally speaking across the album, are kind of good.
Yeah,
Like
I wrote a list of the ones that I liked the most.
So like the intro to Genesis is like moody. It has that like
electronic sci-fi feel.
Yeah, but it has like that flange picking over the top of it before rocking into that do-no-no, just that heavy intro. Then like Ceremony is kind of a little bit more, I don't know.
I was like a little bit more picky when it came in.
Yeah.
Actually, so all the intros are completely different.
Urantia starts with that,
that
that really heavy, and then
I
it
love that.
falls off a cliff. And then Era starts with just like these noise
Distorted.
guitars and like
We'll come back to Era too. I don't want to talk about
yeah, and it has like those cool drums to start the song, and then you have songs like Pompeii, which has that real ominous riff that shifts between like colorful and uplifting, dark and foreboding, almost on a bar to bar.
And then you get Radiant City, where it's just straight into the song, and that is my favorite
riff.
Straight into it and straight into the singing, and it was just
it's absolutely. And then even like Ohms has like a nice rock intro
Drop
too.
into a rift.
Yeah, love it. I think like you listening to the album as a cohesive work, there are a lot of aspects between the songs, similarities that are shared. I don't know that they do enough to break free of each other's songs, right? So I mean, you listen to Genesis and I go, that sounds a lot like The Spell of Mathematics. That also sounds a little bit like, some parts of Radiant City. There's just a continuing theme or style across
throughout
the album.
The whole album. If it wasn't for that break between the songs, you wouldn't really know if they started or stopped, unless there was the intro as well.
Yeah, so the songs do struggle to differentiate between each other.
They all blend into one after a while. It's like, which song am I listening to now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you're not like keeping track of the track list,
if it's in the background, you forget that it's playing.
Yeah, it's a 40-minute song, basically.
Yeah.
Were there any tracks that really stood out for you then? Or
Look, Radiant City was probably where my favorite was, even though... Let's touch on the lyrics.
Sure.
I was confused.
So the impression I get from this album,
It's not written in one style. I think it's whoever listens to it can paint their own picture.
sure, the impression that the theme that I feel like they're going for, especially with a title like Ohms, Resistance,
spells, mathematics.
So the impression that I'm getting is it's an album of counter.
Science?
I would say counterculture. Like it's this person is in a position. The person who is singing about the album, I feel, is in a position where they are seeing things differently to the general prevailing masses, and basically shouting out into the void to try and turn what is an inevitable tide. Right, so that's the sense that I get, is you got this guy standing in the way of an oncoming tidal wave of incorrect thought or opinion, trying to stop it with his words, and then far off in the distance outside the grid, you have the people who are, dripping honey into the circumstance to actually perpetuate that. So I very much get a defeatist / conspiratorial feel, and I get the feeling that the person who's singing about this album feels like he's sane and the rest of humanity isn't. That's the sense that I get. And with a title like Ohms, which really is just a substitute, I suspect, for resistance. I mean, if you are counterculture, you are resistance,
yeah.
right? That's the sense I get from the lyrics. And I mean, there are some key points in it. The very intro song, he feels like he's balanced, and he's been reborn, right? Ceremony, it's an illusion. All of the songs and the lyrics talk about that sort of stuff. Even in the song Error, which we can come back to, he's talking about people or entities outside the grid dripping honey. So the dripping honey wasn't just a random thing that I was saying.
I know, I got you.
So that's the sense that I get from it, and it's all... Yeah, and they're basically building on that particular darkness to centralize the album theme. So in terms of the lyrics, that's where I actually think that was what the intention was for a lot of it.
When I had a quick look at a couple of their interviews, they were talking about they wanted to be like a dark romantic lyrics.
I mean, I don't really get much romance.
No, I don't either, but it depends what they're calling for romantic.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on how far you're deconstructing the term romance, right?
Exactly.
We might have a romance here, but it might be purely platonic, right?
Oh, man.
Well, I mean, we're both balding, so we share some.
We share similarities, yes.
Although your upside down hair is doing pretty well at the moment.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's the only thing I got.
Is the only thing you got?
When you're losing hair from 16, you can't fucking come back with much.
So did you find any romanticized lyrics in there?
No,
Did you look much into it?
I was not drawn to the lyrics. I just, if honest to be to everyone, I kind of made a little bit of fun when I was singing it to my wife in the car. Be like, Jesus Christ has found.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like,
his vocal stylings are definitely an acquired taste. And if I was to try and describe his vocal stylings to anyone, I would say it's Billy Corgan mixed with some placebo elements, basically.
Yeah, true.
There are tracks there where I'm like, if I close my eyes and not think about it too hard, I'm like, oh, this is Smashing Pumpkins.
That's what I thought with Error.
Yeah, Error. Also Ohms as well, because Ohms is a bit more of a rock track. It's probably one of the few out-and-out rock tracks on the album. It doesn't even have really much metal sensibility.
No.
It's just a rock track.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that could be Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, it could.
And the other thing, too, I've written down a number of times is I've kept track of the BPMs for certain songs. And like this album is never upbeat, with probably the sole exception being probably our favorite song, Radiant City.
Is the only time that it actually hits a little bit of a pop in the song. You're like, oh.
That song is, I think, genuinely good. Hey,
Yeah,
Radiant City is a good track.
I think it's the only one I'm going to say is great.
It's probably the only one that I'll actively listen to after this.
Probably. I was saying earlier that if this song or this album came on, I'm not going to run to turn it off. But
Yeah.
I may just skip all the way to Radiant when I get to my phone.
Yeah.
Or I get to this CD player and I just go, Radiant City.
Yeah.
And then play on. And there's only 2 more songs and then we go on to the next album.
Now, you wanted to come back to Error.
Error, every time I listen to Error, all I could think of was Smashing Pumpkins.
Yep.
And if they do a TV reboot of Charmed, they got their intro song.
Yeah, actually, it does have some 90s feels to it. That drum beat, I think, is the thing that gives it away. And the driving bass line and the fact that he sounds like Billy Corgan. It just sounds like 90s, doesn't it?
It does. It really just pulls you in. And it just gives you that sort of twisted...
Yeah.
I reckon a lot of people who are into witchcraft and that sort of spirituality are going to
See,
love this album.
I liked Error. I actually liked Error as well. I think it was a pretty good song.
Nick are going to be all over this.
Pardon?
Nick and Monique.
Oh, okay. So Nick is the one who suggested the album to me. Just as a bit way of background, he's my brother, and he likes Alice in Chains, right?
He does.
And I can't help but hear a lot of Alice in Chains on this album.
I told you that straight away.
Yeah, and I agreed. There was no argument here.
There was none. It was pretty grunge.
Yeah, but it's not even that. It's like Alice in Chains is typified by what I would say is a slower rock feel. It's like he's...
I would have put Alice in Chains as what grunge originally was until Nirvana came and took it to a different stage.
To a better stage.
To the stage.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, they're the feels that I get from it. And I must admit, not having grown up with Deftones, it actually is hard to think of it as Deftones style because I can really easily hear earlier influences. But I'm not even sure when Deftones started up. They may have predated Smashing Pumpkins for all I know. I know they were around early 2000s. They're probably around before that as well, to be perfectly honest.
With 9 albums, maybe late 90s, possibly.
Possibly. I don't know enough about it. The problem is the sameness of the tracks across the album, right? So on a listen, I mean, it's like, there's that flanger sound again. Some octave chords. The riff doesn't really do anything. You have the intro riff, which is really cool.
You think you're going to build up into something
and then you
cool,
just
and just
fall
flat
into
line.
a verse where it's like maybe 1 or 2 chord changes. It doesn't really go anywhere. And I get that it's centering around the moodiness and perhaps raspiness of the vocalist, but it can be a bit difficult.
That's why I said at the start, they're great to go see live.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting up on the hill having a drink and just watching it, it would be a good afternoon. I mean, you wouldn't walk away dissatisfied.
Yeah.
You'd go get dinner and be like, this was a nice afternoon.
I think the most case in point offender for that particular thing with like the riff that just goes and doesn't really do much with the song is the song The Link Is Dead.
Yeah.
So like I like that riff. That riff is actually really cool.
Yeah, it's like a wasteland intro and then into this long guitar string. Do you think he's using his pick or is he sliding?
No, so The Link Is Dead, it's like a swelling chord progression where they mix in a ton of like augmented and just a ton of like augmented chords to get that really disdainful sound that goes on, and then they resolve it in interesting ways. The problem with the riff isn't the riff. The problem is that they then play the riff for 4 minutes straight, basically, with some change up for the verse, but it's basically that the whole way. I think that's what strikes me is like there is creativity in aspects of the songs. There just probably isn't enough to carry the entire album, which is a shame because that riff is fucking sick. Yeah. If you had to pick a top 3.
Top 3 would probably be Radiant, Genesis, Ohms.
For me, it would be Error, Pompeii, and Radiant City.
You like Pompeii?
I like the riff. It's interesting. And I like the fact that at the end, they changed the mix to make it sound like it's underwater. And then at the end of the song, you literally hear the waves crashing on the beach and the seagulls. I mean, you've emerged from the ocean.
I did write that, seagulls.
Yeah.
Where was the clicks? You clicks in the... snaps in the background.
The finger snaps. No, I wrote that down.
Yeah.
I think I've got an exclamation down next to it too.
I wrote it down. I was like, there's finger snaps in this, and it must be...
it's on the Spell of Mathematics.
Spell of Mathematics, yes. Snapping will be a crowd favorite.
Yeah, the problem is that track sucks.
I know. Do you know who came up with the idea for that?
For finger clicks?
Yeah.
First person to ever click their fingers ever?
Like, no.
Neanderthal man?
How they came across to do it on this track.
How?
We're going to go back. Okay, so Deftones is friends with the bass. They're one of the bass player or the drummer from Def Grips.
Oh, okay.
And if you don't know who is also a big fan of the Def Grips, that would be Gene Dawson. So you can kind of get the idea of what kind of wacky background the Def Grips are. And they're coming along, having a few drinks, and then they get this idea, let's put snaps in it. So that when they're at the concert, they got something to bring the crowd in they can just be a part of.
If you're a fucking rock metal act and your crowd drawer is finger clicking. I think you have some problems.
Yeah, why can't you just do like the Viking call?
Alternatively, why can't you just play a riff that gets the crowd up and going? Like that's the thing that does me in, is that
I don't see a lot of moshing, just a lot of 90s grunge sway in the crowd.
yeah, basically. What do you think of the album as a whole?
Deftones are doing a concert, go see them. It'll be great. They're great live. If you go in the party, don't bother. I mean, it's probably be fine to take kids to. I'm not going to rush to play it. If you want to be moody, listen to it.
You have to also be into the slow rock.
You really got to be into it.
Yeah, so for me, it didn't really hit home with that sort of thing. Although there are some songs that I will take away, and I'll add it to my playlists. I'd probably give it a 4 out of 10. This wasn't a particularly good album, I didn't think.
No, I think we came back to back. This was a revenge album anyway.
I want to know how many times you listened to it then.
About 6.
Yeah, about the same, actually.
This week...
Yeah, what are we doing?
Smith Street Band. Don't waste your anger.
Smith Street Band. Okay.
Aussie band's going to be sick. I think you're going to enjoy this one.
Okay, well, we've been CDR. That was Deftones. If you're into this sort of music, go listen to it. If not, yeah, steer clear.
Yep. Rainy day for the witch hunters. Enjoy.
Cool. Have a great week.
Later.